Hello again. It seems strange in this day and age that the Attorney General of the American state of Kansas should be compelled to say that all Americans should be judged based on the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. Almost 60 years after the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed, can it really be that this state of affairs has not yet arrived in the United States? Well, yes. It was for that reason that the Supreme Court recently gave judgment against Harvard University, among other places, for their awful practice of racial quotas. That is to say, limiting the number of students they admit of Chinese heritage. That such a practice should still be operating to this day is truly shocking. Many firms in the United States, including Netflix and PayPal, operate similar forms of discrimination, basing their hiring on skin colour rather than ability. And it is for this reason that the courts have been forced to act. Of course, at one time, limiting certain ethnicities by means of quotas was quite acceptable. Milton Winternitz, Dean of Yale's Medical School until 1935, once declared that his policy regarding admissions each year was never admit more than 5 Jews, take only 2 Italian Catholics, and take no blacks at all. This practice of limiting the number of Jews was common because it was feared that if the admissions procedure was fair and equitable, then Jews would take a lot of the places at the medical school. These days, of course, the anxiety is that it is people of East Asian origin who will do too well when applying for jobs or university places, and that is why so many companies and educational establishments in America have been operating racially discriminatory policies, a practice which the Supreme Court has now declared unlawful and breaching the Civil Rights Act. Exactly the same thing has been going on in this country too, with a lot of places relying not on the merits of potential employees or students, but rather on the colour of their skin. The aim is, of course, not only to discriminate against those of East Asian heritage, but also against those whose ancestry is white European. At the same time, preference is given to job applicants and those hoping to attend university who are of black African origin. This is what is meant by judging people by the colour of their skin rather than the content of their character. It is in flat opposition to the hope expressed by Haile Selassie that the time will come when skin colour matters no more than the colour of a person's eyes. This relentless promotion of black people at the expense of white people and those of Chinese origin is of course a racist practice, and as such is abhorrent to most people. It has, however, for obvious reasons, been advocated fiercely by black people themselves, because they are the ones who will benefit from it. This is the origin of the philosophy of anti-racism. It will be recalled that Angela Davis famously claimed that in a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist, we must be anti-racist. Affirmative action and diversity hires are an integral part of this system. They are anti-racism in practice. The opposite of racism is not anti-racism of this kind. The opposite of racism is non-racism. That is to say, simply ignoring ethnicity and race and making all offers of university places and jobs solely on merit and in a completely colour-blind way. There is, of course, a very good reason why anti-racism emerged and black people dropped the idealism of Martin Luther King and Haile Selassie. This is that when the applications for anything are conducted in a colour-blind fashion, with names and ethnicities and all clues removed from forms, CVs and resumes, something very curious happens. This is that white people and those of Chinese heritage always come at top, and applications from black people are ranked very low. This is why there is no enthusiasm for non-racism and colour-blind applications, and it is what gave birth to the fashionable idea of anti-racism. The only way that most black people will get into the best universities, that is to say Oxford and Cambridge in this country, and places like Harvard and Yale in the United States, is by means of affirmative action, that is to say racial quotas. Once this is scrapped, as it must be by law in America, you will soon see the most academic universities full of white and Asian students with hardly any black people at all. It is this prospect which people are now coming to terms with. It's to be hoped that Britain will follow suit and abandon her own programmes of racial quotas as well. The only truly fair way of life is to ignore ethnicity and allow everybody to reach their own level by their own abilities.